I just want to start off by saying that everything that's incorporated in this training is as a result of things that you requested. We had a 32 services training, and what we kept hearing was that there wasn't enough information in it. So all of the different categories and topics are all based around feedback that you guys as the SCs had given, things that you wanted to see. I do not plan on reading every single slide to you. I want to go through and just do an overview. Get started here. This is the objectives for this training, and after you'll be able to locate the 32 services information from the PHW website, discuss handling the requests, identify the different 32 services, and request any of the 32 services for participants that qualify. All right, so these first couple pages here are just showing you where to access the participant handbook, which lists the 32 services and the very brief overview of what each of the services is. So the previous 32 services presentation that we had was saying the description of each item from this handbook. So this is just where you can follow to find that handbook. You can direct your participants here so that they can look on the website, or they may have their paper copy, but we wanted you guys to have a little bit more information than just the basic description. So this is broken down into different categories. I tried to just break it down by things that made sense. There are certain services that kind of all work together. So the first group that we're going to talk about is the employment services. So the 5 different items that fall into employment services are benefits counseling, career assessment, employment skills development, job coaching, and job finding. So you'll see as we're going through that each of the services is set up in a similar way, where we can get these different topics such as what is it, example of service, the task queue, and the service plan example. That's what we did. So some items differ here and there. You may be seeing a few different category types, but we really tried to keep it streamlined throughout. And like I said, these different topics are all based on things that you guys requested, you said would be helpful when going through these 32 services. So we left in there, what is it? The first one, benefits counseling, counseling about whether having a job will increase your ability to support yourself and or have a net financial benefit. So an example, meeting with a provider that can provide counseling on how to maintain benefits along with employment. We list the task queue, and then we list a PCSP as an example for you. So I just want to make sure that you guys are aware that this is exactly what it says it is. It's an example. It's something for you to have the basic guideline of what should be in where. It's not for you to copy. This is so you have, okay, this is what goes where, but every single PCSP should always be person-centered. So we shouldn't be seeing, exact replicas of what we have in here as an example. It's really just used for you to have a guide to go by. So something else that you guys asked for that we tried to incorporate into each of these services is an example of the SRT, what you should be filling in for each of these individual services. So this really was designed as more of something for you to refer to. We wanted to present it today, obviously, to do a high-level overview, but it will be even more beneficial when you have a question on something and you need to refer back to this to have the screenshots as a helpful resource. So our second employment services, career assessment, it's a review of your interests and strengths to identify potential career options. An example would be a participant meeting with a provider to complete a career assessment. This would help the participant to identify potential career options and areas where they would succeed. Again, we have the task queue, the service plan example, along with our SRT example. Employment skills, learning and work experiences, including volunteer work, where the participant can develop strengths and skills to be able to get a job that pays good wages. An example is a participant volunteering at a company to gain relevant work experience. Job coaching, support to help learn a new job and keep a job that pays. An example, a participant works with an organization to improve executive functions at a job to complete the job successfully. And then our last employment service, job finding, helps to identify potential jobs that fit what the participant wants and can do to meet an employer's needs. An example, an agency works with a participant to help them find employment that would suit their needs and wants. The next set of services is your nursing home transition, so community integration and community transition services. So where we could, we tried to incorporate which participants these services mostly fit with. So these services fit with participants who are currently living in a nursing facility and would like to live in the community. These services do not require a script. So a little bit more about community integration, short-term services to improve self-help, communication, socialization, and other skills needed to live in the community. An example of this service would be money management. A little bit of additional information. Community integration can include things such as queuing and on-site modeling of behavior to assist the participant in developing maximum independent functioning and community living activities. So where possible as well, we included the allotted amount frequency for the different services and the providers. So this is to be utilized for at most 12 weeks, and the providers come from the Centers for Independent Living. A little bit even more of a screenshot here because this service does require the PCSP to be fully filled out with all of the specific information needed to describe why this service is needed. So we have a little bit of an example here for you, as well as your SRT example. So your community transition services, one-time expenses such as security deposits, moving expenses, and household products for participants who move from an institution to their own home, apartment, or other living arrangement. So examples, equipment, moving expenses, security deposits. Then we have our task queue information. A little bit more information. There are some services that, just describing it and just giving it an example, it wasn't enough. So we went ahead and gave additional information that we thought would be beneficial for the work that you need to do with these services. So just giving a high-level overview, these services are requested using a form called the Request for Funds. So either community partners or SCs participating in NHT would fill this out and upload into TrueCare. So this next category it's not really a specific category. I just kind of lumped together everything, all of the waiver services that we see the most often. So these are the ones, when we think of waiver services, these are really the main ones that we see. So this category is all kinds of different topics, but all kind of lumped together because they are the most commonly used ones. So we have adult daily living, home adaptations, PAS, respite, PERS, pest eradication, non-medical transportation, specialized medical equipment and supplies, vehicle modifications, and our home delivered meals. I do want to give a shout out, so many shout outs because so many people helped with this, to Gabby and Stephanie Blank. They both helped me a great deal with this section mostly because this is something that they do a lot with their SCEs. So thank you to the AMs that helped me with this as well. So our adult daily living services are day services in a community-based center to help with personal care, social, nutritional, and therapeutic needs. So as an example, 4 hours a day, our participant goes to an adult day center and socializes with other people. They do crafts, play games, etc. So we have our task queue, PCSP service plan example. This additional information came based off feedback from, as I was going through and doing different updates on this, I had sent it out to members of my team to kind of take a look at and say, what am I missing here? So this came from some questions regarding just wanting a little bit more information about adult day. So some of the questions were centering around incontinence supplies. So we did speak to an adult day center. So while the adult day center protocols may vary, some general information is that they supply wipes and briefs in case of an accident or if supplies were forgotten by a participant. Normally, participants will wear and bring their own incontinence supplies. And then we have our half or full day, a number of days per week should be included when requesting, and it's based on participants' need and availability of the provider. So in order to find some providers, we've linked you to the PHW website here, or you can always have the participant reach out to the general PHW number to get that information as well. And then our SRT example. So home adaptations, physical changes to a participant's home, such as ramps, handrails, to make the home safe and enable the participant to be more independent. Examples, ramps, walk-in shower, handrails, etc. Just something to keep in mind with home adaptations, you are required to assist the participant in obtaining proof of home ownership and a notarized letter giving permission for the modification to be completed on the home. If renting, the landlord must give the permission via a notarized letter. So this is something that is required in order to move a home adaptation request forward. And this is a service that does not require a script. We have our SRT example. Like I had said, this, along with the PCSP, is really just a guide giving you the basic idea of what should be where, but this is going to be centered around what your participant actually needs. Personal assistance services, which I'm sure everybody is extremely familiar with. This is basically the most common service that is used. Hands-on help for activities of daily living, such as eating, bathing, dressing, and toileting. I think we all know what PAS means. And then just a little bit more information about where to find providers and what the allotted amount and frequency is, and our SRT example. So respite, short-term service to support a participant when the unpaid caregiver is away or needs relief, can be provided in the home or a nursing facility. So we gave two different options here. The option of if somebody wants to have respite in their home, so Joe's mother takes care of him informally on the weekends, she's going to be on vacation. Respite services can be requested to be provided by a PAS agency to cover that weekend time. The nursing facility option is the same situation. Joe's mother usually takes care of him, but this time that she's away, Joe would stay in a nursing facility who would provide services. And our test, PCSP example. It's a little bit more information about who this would benefit. And just as I was working with some PCs on this, they provided a little extra guidance. If a participant is needing respite in the home due to informal supports not being available, they are processing it as a temporary increase for the PAS agency. If the participant is going to a nursing facility, then PC is creating a new authorization under the respite code. So kind of a little bit more information than you really need to do your day-to-day job, but I think understanding the job that the PC team is doing helps to make more sense the reason for what you're doing. So just a little extra information in there for you guys. Our SRT example. Number 12, we have our PERS system, personal emergency response, which is your I've fallen and I can't get up button. An example, participant wears a pendant around their neck with a button that can be pushed to alert medical assistance in the case of a fall and participant is alone. This one, I think, really makes sense to me. I believe the other ones do as well, who this fits most for. So this fits for somebody who's able to use that button. We wouldn't give this button to someone who doesn't know to press it when they fall. So it also fits with participants who have support that will not be available for a period of time, but we don't necessarily need a PAS attendant in there. This is just for a safety concern. All right. And our SRT example. Pest eradication. Exactly what it sounds like, services to remove insects and other pests from a participant's home that, if not treated, would prevent the participant from staying in the community. So an example, a participant receives treatment in their home to exterminate bed bugs. A little bit more information about pest eradication. This is kind of just information about how to fill out the PCSP, depending on if the participant has a preferred provider or does not have a preferred provider. Additional information, just a reminder, if a participant lives in an apartment or has Section 8 public housing, this service is not covered unless a written refusal is obtained from the landlord. So again, we have a little bit more of the PC information there, which you can kind of just use to, help understand their process on their end. SRT example. Moving on to number 14, non-medical transportation, tickets, passes, tokens to help a participant get to community and other activities. Just to reiterate, this is non-medical transportation. So this means the participant not going to their doctor's appointments. This is anything outside of medical, non-medical transportation. An example is a participant receives a monthly transportation pass to access the community for non-medical outings, such as going to the store, church, etc. And then a little bit more information about the allotted amount and providers. Number 15, specialized medical equipment and supplies, items that allow a participant to increase or maintain the ability to perform activities of daily living. Examples, incontinence supplies, gloves, barrier cream. This should be all indicated on the PCSP, SRT, exactly the daily amount needed. So the task queue is going to vary depending on what the item is. So I have a note here to refer to the task queue guidelines and request scope list. Just a little bit more information. This service would fit most of the participants who have a need for medical equipment products and supplies that allow them to maintain hygiene and health. Same kind of reminders here. And this is kind of set up the same way as the other service, talking about if the participant has a preferred provider and if they don't have a preferred provider, the different avenues you can go through. Vehicle modifications, number 16, physical changes to a car or van that are used by a participant with special needs. An example, a participant would like a lift added to their van so that it is accessible for them to ride in. So a little bit additional information, they're funded through the waiver and are limited to the following: vehicular lifts, portable ramps, just listing all the different things that this is limited to. A little bit more information, the vehicle must be less than 5 years old and must have less than 50,000 miles on it, and they all need to meet the applicable standards of design and installation. Basically, the reason is that the waiver doesn't want to pay to put a modification on a vehicle that isn't going to last. Home delivered meals. I think we're mostly familiar with this, but this is prepared meals delivered to participants who cannot prepare or get them for themselves. So an example, maybe something like mom's meals. A participant receives frozen meals and they are able to just put them in the microwave and eat them. And we cannot exceed 2 meals a day. We can find providers on the PHW website, as well as working with our PC team and our SRT example. Sarah, any questions before I move on to our next group?
Yes, there is a question actually stating Medicare only paid for 4 or 5 days of respite for hospice. Will Medicare pay for 2 weeks? And I do want to throw it out there that we should be going through LTSS, so through PHW Medicaid for respite if Medicare is not covering it. And there's not really a respite limit. There is a yearly amount, but most of the time it would have to go through a justification process, so it could get denied or passed even if it's past the yearly amount that's already allotted. And then there is one more question in here about pest eradication, which I know was a few slides back, but it says, do you mean that the landlord submits a statement that they will not provide pest eradication?
Yes, so in that case, we have to have something written from the landlord saying that they are refusing to do the treatment. That is what's required in order to move forward in that specific situation that was listed. All right, thank you. All right, moving forward, looking at habilitation services. So cognitive rehab therapy, residential habilitation, and structured day habilitation. So the scripts for these services come directly from the provider via FileNet, and I have the numbers on here where they can be sent from those providers. So you can have this as a point to refer back to if you're needing the script for any of these services. So our first one, cognitive rehab therapy. These are services for participants with brain injuries and cognitive impairments, such as autistic spectrum disorder and developmental disorders that include consultation with a therapist, counseling, coaching, to focus on helping the participant to function in real-world situations. So an example of this is a participant working one-on-one with a therapist to help improve their function in daily activities. Moving on to number 20, structured day. So these are day services in a small group setting directed to preparing a participant to live in the community. An example, a participant meets in a group setting with a program leader in order to assist with learning problem solving and or task completion. This service would fit most participants who want to develop and maintain their skills in order to live in the community. Vary the allotted amount and frequency vary based on the need of the participant and the approval of UM. And then we have our SRT example. All right, so our behavioral health services, behavior therapy, counseling services, these services do not require a script. So number 21, behavior therapy, services to assess the participant, develop a home treatment support plan, train family members and staff to help carry out that plan, and monitor the participant in the implementation of that plan. So an example, a participant lacks a routine at home and requires assistance developing a home plan. The participant's mother does not understand the home plan and requires additional education on implementing this plan. So this topic, I have a lot of links to other additional information where you could find some more information. We have also notes about the mental health and drug and alcohol services provided via the Health Choices program differ from the physical health component of the Health Choices program. So I think that this was as a result of a question that was asked, and when kind of going through this guide here, you will see the Health Choices information. So this is just a little note from when you go through this Health Choices program. I'm not going to pull it up today just for time's sake, but you do have this to refer back to. And then our SRT example. Moving on to counseling services. So this is to help a participant resolve conflicts and family issues. An example, a participant is struggling letting his or her mother take care of them. Same thing, the follow-up here, this relates the same, this is the same additional information websites as from the previous one that you can look at to provide a little bit more guidance and information for you. I'm just going to go through skilled services just because it was kind of quick going through the last two, and then we'll ask for any questions after I go through this set. So these are skilled services: home health aid, nursing, occupational therapy, nutritional counseling, physical therapy, speech therapy. These services are suited best to participants who are in need of a skilled level of care that someone with a more advanced medical background would provide, more advanced than just their mother or sister may be able to provide as a PAS attendant. So a participant must exhaust the options of skilled services through their primary insurance first before requesting through the waiver. So same situation will need to come from the provider via FileNet, and an updated script is needed for these services every 60 days. So the first one, number 23, home health aid, services ordered by a doctor that include personal care such as help with bathing, monitoring a participant's medical condition. An example is a participant is in need of medication being physically provided. This is not something that a regular PAS attendant should be doing. This is more of a home health aid task. It's very close between a PAS attendant and a home health aid, but it's the expectation that a home health aid does a little bit more of those medical type tasks than a PAS attendant would. So just some additional information, allotted amount, and our provider guide. SRT example. Nursing, services of a registered nurse that are ordered by a doctor. An example, a nurse coming to a participant's home in order to provide a daily injection of medication. Something that you would need that licensure of a nurse to be able to complete. Same thing, allotted amount, our provider information, our SRT example. Moving on to occupational therapy. They include evaluating participant skills and helping to change daily activities so that the participant can perform activities of daily living. An example, a participant has a stroke and is now working with an occupational therapist to assist with self-care routines like getting dressed, helping to fine-tune their motor skills and motor planning. Nutritional counseling, services to help the participant and a paid and unpaid caregiver in planning meals that meet the participant's nutritional needs and avoid any food problems. So an example, a participant visits a dietitian to discuss what foods will help to maintain their blood sugar and not complicate their diabetes. So this would fit most with participants who are kind of struggling with understanding what foods are going to help and harm them depending on their medical conditions. This is actually, nutritional counseling is something that it seems like not a lot of people utilize, but is actually a really great benefit that's offered. Physical therapy, so services of a physical therapist, which include evaluation and treatment of a participant to limit or prevent disability after an injury or illness. So an example, a participant was in an accident and is now working with a physical therapist to work on balance to prevent a slip or fall. Speech therapy, services of a licensed or certified speech language pathologist, which includes evaluation, counseling, and rehabilitation. Example, a participant works with a speech therapist to help with their swallowing issues. All right, any questions before I go into participant-directed options?
Yeah, so there is a question about the behavioral health service and whether nursing facility participants can use that. So Arzelia put in the chat here that nursing facilities typically work with their local or county behavioral health MCO, but if the nursing facility is reaching out to you as the SC for assistance, you can help link that referral to the local behavioral health MCO.
Yep, and those links that are in there that we don't really have time to go through, they do have information about behavioral health MCOs, and that was one of the first things when I reached out to Heather and that team, that she had said that typically things do go through the behavioral health MCO, but obviously it is our role to help wherever possible with that. So thank you.
Okay. And another question, our assessments can help determine if someone gets OT, PT.
The service is something that would most likely first be requested by a doctor and does have to be requested by a doctor. Certainly if you're doing the assessment and if it's very apparent that a person needs those services, you can help the participant speak with their doctor and see if that's something that they think is beneficial, but it ultimately is a doctor that has to recommend and give a script for that service or provide the information that's needed for that service. Does that answer the question?
Yes, so first the script, but then also the PCSC and NRI will need to reflect that.
Correct. So just a reminder too, like we said, that all of the other sources of insurance need to be exhausted first before you would go through the waiver for this. So if if they have other insurance and it's been denied to them, or they don't have other insurance, then that would be when, yes, we would have to have it on the PCSP and get it requested through us.
All right, thank you for that clarification. That's all the questions right now.
All right, participant-directed options. So the next set of services we will look at are participant-directed community supports and participant-directed goods and services. So I don't want this necessarily to get confused with like participant-directed option outside of Services My Way, because these mostly specifically relate to participants who are living in the community and want to use the Services My Way program. So the Services My Way program is actually something that very, very few participants use, but these are part of the 32 services, so I wanted to make sure they were included in here. A high-level overview of the Services My Way program is basically where a participant manages their own budget of services. So they have a certain amount of money and they are able to spend it on their different services such as PAS, home delivered meals, incontinence supplies, things like that. But They are completely responsible for managing their budget. This is just two of the items that are part of the Services My Way program. So these services do not require a script. Specifically, number 29, participant-directed community supports. These are services and supports for participants who want to direct their own services, hire their own workers, and keep a budget for their services under Services My Way. So, which include helping the participant with basic living skills such as eating, drinking, toileting. So an example is PAS, home delivered meals, the waiver services that are to be funded by the participant's budget. So I included here that we do have a job aid on SharePoint for Services My Way. I included a link to that to, just give you a little bit more information if you were looking for it for Services My Way. The providers, same as some of the other services, can be found on the PHW website. Our SRT example. And the other participant-directed option service, participant-directed goods and services. So this is services, equipment, or supplies for the participants under Services My Way. So this is the items outside of the waiver services. So like their Depends or things like that, gloves. So this is the banking of money from their monthly budget for things that are not otherwise covered by the plan. Just kind of the same information again, where these items should be addressed and identified, and we have the job aid again here for your reference. And our SRT example. So the last two sets of services, we are almost there, gone through 30 so far, are technology services. So we have assistive technology and telecare. The script for these services comes from the provider via FileNet, same as some of the other services. Then we have those numbers there for the provider to send them to. So the first one, assistive technology. This is an item, piece of equipment, or product to increase or maintain ability to communicate or do things for the participant self as much as possible. Example, magnifiers, special utensils and dishes, text-to-speech aids, all kinds of items like that. So this service fits most with participants who need these assistive devices in order to maintain their independence and or safety. Some information on providers and just this kind of same blurb here again about if the participant has a preferred provider and if they don't have a preferred provider. Our last service, number 32, telecare. These services that use technology to help a participant be as independent as possible. So 3 different categories here: health status measuring and monitoring, activity and sensor monitoring telecare, and medication dispensing and monitoring. So an example, which is kind of summarized in the what is it section, is a medication dispenser or reminder, which would alert a participant, hey, it's time to take your medications, if they may have an issue with remembering that. Also, monitoring motion sensor to cut down on PAS hours, so a direct care worker does not necessarily need to be there throughout the night because we have these motion sensor that can be monitored. All right, same about your provider information here, SRT example. So a little bit of additional information behind the scenes. The LTS service request process, we have a link to that there. One question that I got when I sent this out was, how does adult day differ from structured day? So participants who are taking part in adult day are already living in the community, and this is more of a social environment as opposed to a teaching one. And then we just list kind of the information about each of the services there. So I just wanted to make sure to address that question that was asked. Okay, so that was a ton of information, and I only went over probably like a fifth of it, but I didn't want to read 110 slides to you guys. Like I said, please use this as a guide, refer to it, and I hope that it's helpful. All right, well, thank you guys.